Guess what time it is, everybody? It is Fem Talk Tuesday. We have coined this our evening. So, without further delay, I'm going to bring in the ladies of Fem Talk. We've got Mimi, girl bossed up, Melissa Simmons.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. And we have Shima She Talks.
Hello, everybody. Fem Talk Tuesday.
Yes, it is. It's Fem Talk Tuesday. And listen, everybody out there, we are going to be talking about a topic that I'm sure everybody has probably been watching. But I just want to say, right, I have to put this out there because this is real TV, everybody. So when you make mistakes, you point it out. There was a fat finger on the iPhone here. It is ROE, not ROW. I just want to make that clear. And we do know that here on this show. And it had to be mentioned. So we want to get into something though. We've got for you. You know how we start this show, everybody. We started with dun, 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 dun. Here we go. The Fem Talk Tuesday hot topic, everybody. So I'm gonna let Mimi take it away. Take this time.
Okay. So I am an avid viewer of Good Morning America. And recently I saw a post and I said, why are they lying my two favorite people on the show? And obviously it didn't turn out to be a rumor, but kind of the truth that their main host are we're doing a little bit more than fraternizing, and they were having an affair, and with TJ Holmes and Amy Robach, and they have been suspended or put on hiatus. Yes, they have been put on hiatus from the show. The president of or the executive director of Good Morning America says while they sort it out, they will on hiatus. Yeah. And the question comes, they both admitted they were having this affair, but both started it after they separated from they're both married, but they're separated, and they said it happened after their separation. And then it becomes are we now suspending people for making adult decisions? And if it's good thing or a bad thing. So, always is what is going on? What are we doing here?
And I love that you said adult decisions, right? Because it was said that it was consensual.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are rules in the workplace, right? We do have to just point that out, right?
Well, not everybody's workplace.
No, well, we don't. I don't know what their rules are, so I won't say what theirs are. But what I'm saying that to point out is the station operating on some rules that were already set up?
Right.
Or are they operating on the fact that this does not look good for the network? Because we got to face that fact too, right? So I'm just going to say hello to my beautiful mom out there watching. Thank you for joining us. So, let us know what we think. And everybody, we're going to have our guest comment on this when she comes in. Definitely.
And many, when you look in the fine print of the I would call it the standard human resource guide, or how you operate a business, they usually say not promote fraternization or relationships on the job. Most of them say that. So I would suspect they have something in their rule book or employee handbook that does refer to that. But I think this is really about it doesn't look good for the station.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I thought you were going to say so. So I said, go ahead. You're going to say something.
I was going to say, but why doesn't it look good for the station?
Well, it's funny. We have Robin Roberts quoted. I don't know if she really said this, but they said that her and George were very upset because have been prided, because if you remember, not in the last, say, 5 to 10 years, I'll go back as far as 5 to 10 years, all the major networks, NBC, CBS, CNN has had a lot of controversial issues with some of their main co-hosts, and many of them their jobs. Now, they had done much different things than this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ABC with Good Morning America had not had those, things happen. So they were kind of and been known to not be controversial, have a good family network group. So I think this messed up their image, if you
So
ask
is
me.
that more messed up the image because you're not legally and fully divorced, or because you're two co-hosts or anchors or mainstream, prime time? I don't know if that's prime time, but daytime anchors on the same show. Nobody's above each other, right?
Yeah, there's
Mhm.
no question of
Nobody's each
power
other's
here.
boss.
Right.
Okay. So I can understand if it was you guys are used to be married and you're not single yet. You're not really single.
Right.
But just so you're not one of the stations that doesn't have, this scandal going on, I don't know. And I still don't, I know that the human resources does say in certain businesses, privately owned ones have different standards.
Mm-hmm.
And on some of the publicly owned ones have different standards.
For sure.
But
for sure.
Let's say you don't have it. Let's poke the bear. Let's say you don't have that. So is it still now because you're going to embarrass the network that you can't find companionship? I'm harping hard on it because I don't have nobody. You're not gonna tell me. I spent 18 hours at work with this man, and he looked good to me.
Exactly.
And I talked to him all day long. And his wife don't want him, and my husband don't want me.
So why not, right? We're not getting along. And then,
well, you guys
in
always
the
have to
room
play
is
the other side too, right? But what about brand image, right? Because
brand image.
that matters.
Disney, this is the Disney-owned station. I think it's brand image.
There you go.
Right.
Ding, 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 ding. That's
Ding, ding, ding. I think and they've made a big push to always rep Disney brand. They do it so often, and I think the other thing out there is no affairs in corporate while working together. Yeah, right. If that was the case, you know how many marriages wouldn't be together? I mean, where do you find your mates in very specific? If you do surveys, people either at school, at work, or where you may have spent more time at the gym, places you spend time at. And if you're like to somewhere for 10 hours a day, what do you think is going to happen? But I will say this, and I'll just throw this out there. And I know we to the end of this piece, but I wonder if the interracial thing had anything to do with it.
Ding, 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 ding,
ding. And again, that gets wrapped up into that image too, that brand image. Like, let's be real about that.
Yeah.
In this
I want to focus on that, but I'm gonna pull anything else so that it doesn't look like I care that there's an interracial connection there.
You know what? This is not the first relationship that has spawned out of working together, and on TV we've seen it before, and I just think this is just their way of not approving that relationship.
Right. That's overkill. It's over.
And do they have the right? Right? Do they have the right? So we have a beautiful attorney waiting backstage because today our topic is Roe versus Wade. However, I would love for her to just tell us, what she thinks about this opinion and legal advice, right? In terms of how this all works. So we're going to bring the beautiful LaShawn Fleming in so that we can have her get in on this topic and then start our topic for tonight. Here we go. I want everybody to give her a virtual round of applause. Yes.
Miss LaShawn.
Hello, everybody. Hey, ladies.
Hello.
Ooh.
And just so you guys know, Miss LaShawn is an avid Fem Talk fan. One of the very first and long standing. And
That's
we greatly
Yes. I appreciate you, ladies. I was listening in the in the back room about TJ Holmes. I think I agree with Melissa. I think there's definitely probably some rules in place regarding fraternization. However, I do think it's just it's a brand image thing, right? Because they were not supervisor, subordinate. So you don't have that issue, right? At least nobody has brought that up. So I think it's more of what the image they want to give, they want to show. I don't see what it hurts for them to be together if they're both, it was voluntary relationship, they're doing their job, they haven't done anything wrong. So I think from my, I'm not providing any legal advice. This is just personal LaShawn opinion. But I think just from my opinion is that I think you just stay out of grown folks' business, right? They were not doing anything that was damaging the job relationship or the working relationship. Then I think that, they definitely shouldn't necessarily be suspended unless, they signed something that said that if they were to become involved with someone at work to disclose it, right? Now, they had that in place, they may have obligated themselves to more responsibility with regards to, and once they saw that they were in a relationship, they could have just told their bosses, hey, we're in a relationship, we want to disclose that we're in a relationship. But if they didn't sign something like that, and I don't know if they did or didn't, I don't know if you ever heard anything like that, then I think it's a perfectly fine relationship. Because I'm with, I think it was Shima that said, that's what people, where else do you meet somebody? You spend most of your time at work.
That's right.
So, and then as far as the fact that they were not fully divorced, I mean, I live in the real world. I think it's time for us to start living there, right?
Absolutely.
Amen to that. I'm good on that one, Melissa.
We have become so intolerant to people living their lives, being able to say what they want to say. We was kind of talking a little bit about that earlier, saying what they need to say, doing what they need to do. I think it lets you out literally creating a frenzy that can cause harm, like what happened on January 6th. Other than that, you have the right. What happened to the freedom of speech? What happened to this ability that this is America? We can say, we can do and say what we need to do and say. But now that has gone astray, and any off comment or anything people don't like no more, they're getting people tossed off of networks and all kinds of jobs. And I am just not for this. Have a real reason why you're getting rid of somebody. But anyway,
exactly.
But do we really have a freedom of speech though? I think we have a lot of beautiful words, but I don't think they have really a whole lot of
not at all
weight and power and meaning. I think that it's selective, right? It depends upon who's in power. It depends upon what the new wave of ideology that they're wanting to push. But the reality of it is, do we really have freedom of speech? And I don't know. And it's like, are we progressing forward? Or are we progressing backwards, right? And I think sometimes what's happening, at least
are we just stuck?
But if you're stuck, you're going backwards, right? And so sometimes in being stuck, you tend to go backwards to try to hold on to some semblance of, at least I had this idea of, you make the, long time ago, you make it as if it was great. Long time ago, we had values. We have values today. Values change, right? And I guarantee if I go back to the 1800s, you did not have values. You know what I'm saying? It just depends upon how you define values. So you're not going to tell me we have less values in 2022 than in 1800s, right? Exactly. I can show you a picture to show you that we don't, right?
Absolutely.
You hung black people up on trees and you were grinning and laughing and smiling.
That's
so
right.
Let's talk about values, right? You didn't have values back then, right? It's just, so let's grow with the times. Let's evolve. And our best time isn't behind us. Our best time is now and in front of us.
I love that. I love that. And and this, we could just segue into the conversation, because what came to mind was, you talk about values. What today, and talk about, like you said, there's so many things in the Constitution that was written, but what has totally been tainted is supposed to be a separation of church and state. And we are very clear that the main movement And the main group behind changing Roe versus Wade, what is the religious movement out there? The evangelicals. And let me tell you this, I'm a born again, spirit filled Christian. So this is not about Christianity. I want to make that very clear. I love Jesus, and this is not about Christianity. This is about a movement. And they use the evangelical as a label, but in my humble opinion, this is another political group that has moved the agenda to satisfy their own, like you just said, moral views.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
my bell. It's my bell.
You have to go back to when you think about the basis of overturning Roe versus Wade, you really have to go back to the reasoning that the court give in Dobbs, right? And look at why is it that they did not uphold Roe versus Wade under, liberty under the 14th Amendment. And so, and one of the way they did the analysis basically was they said, okay, for substantive due process, we look at liberty, right? But not necessarily liberty in the terms of how we would probably think of liberty. We think of liberty as freedom. I get to say what I want to say. I get to do what I want to do, right? They called it in the court, they called it ordered liberty, right? And so basically, now really what that means, in my opinion, is it just really means your opinion, right? Whoever's in the court, whoever has the power to give their opinion, and then they say, oh, we're going to call it this is ordered liberty, right? But the way that they analyze what is ordered liberty, they say, well, we're going to look at what is the American tradition, or what is our historical perspective on this, right? The problem with when you have to look backwards, which I was talking about earlier, sometimes you look backwards to try to gauge, okay, how did we always view abortion, badly, right? And they say, well, let's look at the history. Let's go back to, the 1700s. Let's go back to the colonial days. Let's go back to English law, right? But if you go back that far, what you're going to find is that in that time, what was government run? Who ran government? The so-called, what we call evangelicals, right? So it was the religious people that were the government back then.
Come on now.
Right?
Come on
so
now.
When you say, okay, so when you analyze substantive due process and your analysis is based on, well, let me go back to history and see how we viewed it from a historical perspective, then of course, the evangelical perspective is going to win out, because that is who governed government at that time, right? And so I think that using that analysis is that maybe how you do and analyze, substantive due process when you take that from a legal perspective. But they chose to do that and ignore what's called stare decisis, which is precedent, right? Roe versus Wade was precedent. Casey was precedent, and that upheld a woman's right to have an abortion pre-viability, right? And so it was someone's personal perspective. It was the evangelicals' perspective to say, okay, you know what, we can just say, hey, we're going to utilize past law, and then utilizing past law allows us to to overturn Roe versus Wade, and that's basically what they did. But you have to remember, old law was governed by religion. Religion was the law.
So that separation of church and state, it was truly violated if that's how they used it. You know what I'm saying? And the thing, and this is another thing I want to ask you, Madam Attorney. Because what my equity of this law, of this overturning this law, because now we go back to this: two people had to, or a seed from a man had to do this. And no judgment in this situation comes to the seed, only to the woman, and the harm is only against the woman, with no accountability on the side. See, I'm a believer that when you have, even though you can say who's what sex, I mean, in terms of who's in control, but when this is a male dominated process with male perspectives, what keenly always gets ignored is the male's role.
But doesn't that just supports what Madam Attorney was just saying, right? When you go back and look at the history, now that just supports the history all over again. We didn't have any
Right.
voice. We didn't have any rights. We didn't, right? It was all about the man, and they were governing back then. So now if you take it back to religion and back to the way the laws were in history, they're following suit, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's actually scary, right? Because
Absolutely.
if you follow the analysis that they used to overturn Roe versus Wade, that analysis can actually be used to overturn your
Everything.
rights.
They said this.
Right.
They said it was going to be the beginning of a bunch of things changing. Because to your point, Madam Attorney, well, I mean, they're using this as the beginning, and that's why even tonight's election today, and that's why it was so critical, because when you get this, they're putting so many people in offices to push this agenda.
Yeah.
And stacking the deck in order to do these things, to the point now, I was listening to this story of it was an African American woman, her husband and him, they purposely got pregnant. Planning pregnancy, this is a joy to them. As they went now, and they lived in, I want to say they lived in one of the states. I want to say it's Mississippi, but I'm not sure. But they live in one of the states where now they they can't have abortions. So now they go to the doctor few couple months into the pregnancy, the child that's being born, major brain damage, major dysfunction, to the point the doctor said that the baby's just not, is going to be needing help for the rest of their lives. It just was not a good position. They was devastated. So the doctor gave them a script for abortion at this point, because they said, this would be the safest thing. The doctor couldn't fulfill it. Nobody in the state could fulfill it. Time is going by. They went from state to state, could not make an appointment. They could not get appointments for weeks.
Wow.
To terminate this child that really would not have been. Finally, I believe through obviously really pushing the issue, they finally came to New York and was able to have abortion. But this was a conscious decision that was prescribed by the doctor,
right?
And not and he nor anyone else in multiple states could assist this couple. What have we come to?
Yeah,
it's going to get worse.
Yeah,
it's actually going to get very worse, because you're going to have some people, no disrespect to the religious people, y'all are going to wear this mantle really, really hard, right? Yeah. And y'all going to feel like y'all are, God obligated to stop someone from doing something, from making their own choice. And so it's going to get worse. You're going to have some states that they're, like Texas abortion law is cruel. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right?
It is. Yeah.
Felony, it's life in prison, it's civil penalties. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, and I just think you're going to find that this probably is the seed to social warfare, right? And the unfortunate part is, one of the things that really does or used to make America great, right? It's like when somebody would become, in politics, right? Let's just take politics, right? You would just have the utmost respect for them. You would think, oh my goodness, they're so smart and they're just so intelligent. And you would just be, you would have just admiration for them. But the admiration game is out the door.
Right.
You don't care anything about you being qualified or whatever. But really, what we really should take from that is that you never really needed to be quote unquote
In the
qualified.
first place.
Right.
Right. So a lot of us may have not gotten involved in politics or in that type of stuff because we felt like, well, I don't have this degree or I don't have this qualification. Now you realize you don't need it.
Exactly.
Right? You
At
don't
all.
need it.
A requirement.
Right.
The problem is that they're only supporting these unqualified people simply because they know that they will push the agenda on a
Right.
hot button.
Right. It's it's a game of chess, right? You bring the pawns in so that you can play the game, right? The queens could play the game with the pawns because the pawns are going to listen, right? And they're going to do what you tell them to do. That Georgia is a perfect example of this, right?
Yeah, tonight. I mean, this whole
today.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tracy.
No, I was just going to say I wanted to address Brandy's question here and see what Madam Attorney thought. You've been coined now, Madam Attorney.
You say so. Does child support start at conception too? Well, yeah, I guess it does technically, right? You know what I'm saying? But
and then look at
what's funny about that question with child support? The problem, the challenge is, they make you have the baby, right? But then when the baby is here, then they basically, will isolate the parent. They don't want to provide any services to the parent, or if they do provide services, then they classify you, your welfare recipient, you this, tie up your bootstraps and work. They want to try to identify you as as something because you now got a baby. You're over there having all of these babies. Okay, but if I tried to not have the baby, right? It's not a matter of whether or not you should have an abortion or not have an abortion. But I'm a big proponent of individual right, because the more the government or the state takes my individual right, the more I'm being killed while being alive.
Right. Right.
Come on. You got to say that. Yes.
That's right.
So it goes back to, what Laura commented too, freedom or privilege, right? So they, with the government feeling like they're giving us privilege versus allowing us to have freedom because we're human beings, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
And then where does that stand for the situation that Melissa gave? Okay, I cannot abort this child that clearly has all these ailments. I have him. I have to care for him 24/7. So does that mean I work?
And can I afford
Does that mean that anybody in my household works?
Right.
And does that mean that you not support us?
Right.
And can you afford it?
And to me, that's just another plot too to classify people, because we're wrapped up in a system, right? So they get to classify us for bigger reasons outside of just this one particular issue, right? Because I feel like you, Madam Attorney, I feel like this is going to go so much further than Roe versus Wade. And now we're caught up in a system, right, where we're being classified as, X. I'm just going to say that. For when something else happens, right? Because to me this is much bigger, and I'm landed right there. But
no, I agree, and this is my concern, right? My concern with us Black people who are religious, right? What my biggest concern with us is that we're gonna give energy and support to what's happening right now because we're only seeing it through the lenses of being religious. And and I think what's going to happen is that it's going to flip on us. And when it flips on us, religion is not going to save us now, just like it wasn't saving us in the 1800s.
Right.
And that's my biggest concern. And I think we're being short-sighted. And that's not, and I'm not religious. If you know me, I'm not religious, but I respect people's religion, right? But at the same time, all you have to do is look back over history to see the manipulation of the mind by religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I don't want to happen right now is we're gung ho. Yeah, you know, I'm against the, you know, she shouldn't have an abortion. Da 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 da. And don't get me wrong, and I get it. You can, there's support to abortion being used to eliminate Black people. I totally, you know, Sanger, I understand. I agree. And I'm not saying that I'm pro-abortion or anti-abortion. I'm having an analysis of a conversation about the concern I have with individual rights being taken away.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I have concern about us as Black people, because we may be religious, supporting ideas that that are not realizing that the analysis that that's underlying the support is actually to your detriment. See, anytime as an American you go backwards to analyze the justification of the reduction of an individual right, you don't realize that you have just eliminated yourself from the equation. Because if you look at the Constitution was created in 1787, it was put in operation in 1789, right? And it did, all of the first 8 amendments were put in place by 1791. But Black people was not a part of the original Constitution from 1787 until 1868. And then even after 1868, when it was written in through the 14th Amendment, we still didn't even have rights to vote or et cetera till you talking about the 1960s. And even to the day, they still have to renew the Voting Rights Act. See, that right there, that's bullshit to me.
In the way.
The Voting Rights Act in 2022, right? Because it is to keep us temperate. It is to keep Black people just enough scared politically, right? That we vote a certain kind of way. But we don't ever grow. Because to me, you can that should be eliminated. Why isn't voting right, the right to vote? Why we got to still be voting on voting rights in 2022? But we don't catch that because we get into the political and the political drama. Every 2 years they get us high, then we right? And they do this all the time. But we have got to understand that we were not included. We were not included. Your body was included, right? In the 3/5 compromise. But your thoughts were not included. Your emotions were not included, right? They didn't get, when they look at the Anglo-American history, it is intentionally excluding you. And you got to understand that, irregardless of your religion, because their religion that they're basing their laws on, that religion excluded you.
You too. That's right.
It sure did.
That's right.
And that was used to keep us in place. I mean, let's be real about that. That was introduced by the slave owners. So let's just be real about that.
So the religiosity, and and I call it religiosity because you're different than what we're talking about, and your belief, and you know what I'm saying. And to your point, Madam Attorney, when you was talking, I thing that happened with all these Black men that went to jail because they made marijuana illegal, and now that they turn that around and everybody come, that was done to get you. Now with this whole thing, because even specifically the example I was talking about with this, well, they had means to go to another state to get this done. To your point, who you think they gonna come to your house and they gonna arrest you and put in jail? They ain't going to everybody, but they gonna come to somebody that look like this house. And we heard you had an abortion, and once again, they're gonna wrangle up our people and put them in jail first, even though we're not even the majority of the people that go get abortions. If you look at the statistics, the majority of people that get abortions are Caucasian women, large majority. But they're not going to go after them. They're going to come. It's going to give the authorities a reason and a purpose to come after you.
Yep.
point.
Well, it's just like in Texas, the gun law, right? In Texas, we have the right to carry a gun. I think even without having necessarily a license, but yet Black people who are saying, "Hey, I got a license," they still charge you with the unlawful carry. So, but anyway, we had a question. Did you?
Yeah. I wanted to put that up there.
Okay.
Does the Constitution say people are here to be the burden girls for the white people?
You know what? I don't remember reading that part, the burden of bearers. But I can't say that I can't say that it doesn't, right? No, yeah. I don't think that it says that. However, it does. It did have the 3/5 compromise in there. And specifically, we were not counted as people. We were not counted as humans. And I actually love now to actually keep saying that, because I think that is necessary for us to know this truth, because I think somewhere between then and now we've fallen asleep to that truth, and we need to be awakened to that, right? Really? So that when we hear stuff, we hear it with a critical ear, and we think about it, and we don't just jump on the bandwagon because we're Christians, or jump on the bandwagon because we're Muslims, or we believe that you shouldn't do this. No, let me think about it, because at the end of the day, we're living in a land where everybody around us know where they came from. Everybody around us know where they came from, but we're still in debate mode. So we're gonna have to claim a sect, and I'm not claiming a sect outside of where I'm at. Okay. I don't know nothing about another continent. I know this land, and what I do know is that some ain't right with what you told me. Right? Something ain't right with what you told me. I'll probably never figure out what the truth is, but I don't need to figure out what the truth is. I'll make it up just like you did. Right? And so that's how we have to address things. And that doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're non-religious, you're an atheist. It doesn't matter. We got to come together, and we've got to start to think about our better interests, our best interests, right? And our best interest is not necessarily to jump on this bandwagon, because remember, many Anglo-Americans left Europe to come to America because they were tired of being ruled and abused by the religious people. Right. So why would we turn around and create that same thing here?
Ain't that something? Ain't that something? What we ran from, we now create. And now same position. We are literally under religious oppression, being told this is how you should believe. This is what you should say. The point we was talking about, even in hot topics. Now, if you do something that everybody don't agree with, I'm gonna take your job away. I'm gonna take your contract away. You're gonna have to apologize for saying that. That is exactly what we ran from: oppression. And what you say, not hurting anybody. You can say what you want, but when you say and when you do things that is personal to you, you're not being oppressed for it.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's going to get worse unless we get better.
Yeah. But I mean, listen, that's been the motto or the mantra, I should say, for the last 3 years. Right? So when you said, Madam Attorney, that it's not going to stop here, it had already started before they overturned Roe versus Wade. And not even to go into the pandemic. I'm just talking about the agenda, right? Yep. So that started there, and it's just continuing. And I shouldn't even say it started there, but that was a big part. That was something that people really noticed.
Let me say this:
if you're paying attention.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna let the cat out the bag a little bit. This didn't just start. This there was a deal made before Saudi, and we know who ran for president. The person that was running for president had a party he was a part of. That party did not support him. The other party went to him and said, "You agree to our agenda, we will support you." How I know that? Because a major person in the party, part of the religious group, was given a townhouse by the person that was running for president.
Wow.
Hold that thought right there. We're gonna go to a quick commercial break because this is hot right now.
Don't play. That's right.
This is hot. All right, everybody, listen. You heard it here. So you do not want to move. Don't even go to the bathroom.
Right. Hold it.
We'll hold that.
We only got a few more minutes.
We will be right back right after this quick commercial break. Woo. And we are back. So I'm not going to delay this. We're just going to bring in the ladies here because this conversation is just too good. So, Melissa.
The townhouse.
Right. The townhouse. This townhouse.
The townhouse.
I'm telling you, was given and thought it was cute to just mention it sometimes. And because this was prior, I heard it from my own ears. I was in the room, said this. When this major person, part of the evangelical movement, said this, and thought this is before anybody was running for president. So when I tell you the setup, that's right, was already in the works.
Right.
And then the connection came was when the got into the office, he created this religious group of major pastors that would come and counsel him. One of the pastors that was in this group and started attending these meetings another major international pastor had to drop. They said, this is not what we think it is.
Wow.
The Lord, and debate. It's so bad.
It was debate the whole time. And it was purpose to do this. Sold out. He don't believe none of this. He could care less.
Right.
Yeah. But today, I don't think it requires that you actually believe. It only requires that you give the perception that you believe.
That's right.
The people who really do believe want something to believe in so desperately, right? That they can be taken on a ride with no benefit. Right. And that is what, to me, that's what's happening right now. Right. They're still in wealth right in front of our eyes. Right. They're literally they're imprisoning your mind, and you're willingly letting them. Right. They're taking the future wealth, and you're freely giving it to them. Because they're literally doing that right in front of our eyes. Absolutely. But because they can say, God said no abortion, they can spout the religious stuff, right? Then they know how to, because they now raise the God token, right? Then it's almost like it's like a switch. It shuts us off. And then we stop thinking, right? And it's just like, we just go with whatever they say. And it's like, okay, well, what's the long-term play here for us, right? If they have an agenda, then my question is, what is our agenda?
That's right. That's right. No thought process, and I say this now more often than I don't. I said either, and when you talk this, and it's unfortunate that this conversation really is a battle between religion and freedom. Right. How odd that that the conversation and the battle is between religion and freedom.
Mm.
And the truth of the matter is, when we talk about religion for what we see in America, religion, and this a truly anointed person said this one, and they said, you are highly anointed or highly manipulative.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And many people
Or sometimes you're both.
and
Be
many
real.
people are following people that are highly manipulative because they're telling you how to think, to your point, Madam Attorney, and they're swaying, they're taking mind and telling you now how to think, and you go every Sunday, you go every Thursday, you and give me this and give me that, and the whole manipulation, how much money you should give me, and how much this you can give me, and if you believe this, and now vote this way, and now and give me this, and all of this stuff. I see my own self.
Yep.
Manipulation.
Yep.
One day we used to call that cult, but hey.
Yeah.
Right.
And
they're so afraid to throw that word around. You don't want to hear it. You don't hear it as often as you used to.
Yeah.
Because we also don't want to be told we can't believe what we want to believe and do what we want to do. So don't say that word to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Melissa, you made such a great point, right? Religion versus freedom. Now, religion should give you freedom, right? Believing in a God power that is creative and authoritative, and you're here and you have this opportunity of existence for a period of time. God got your back. Jesus is in your corner. You should feel freedom. But instead, what has happened is that they have taken that and they have basically, created this prison and said, okay, but if you're going to be religion, go get in that prison, sit there, do this, don't do that, go here, don't go there, believe here, don't listen to when I say this, but then listen to when I say that.
That's right.
You know what's actually written on a piece of paper, but believe this. And so instead of religion or your spirituality giving you freedom, it's actually taking it away. So then someone like me that used to be very religious and no longer religious, it was like me becoming non-religious gave me my freedom back. But I never knew it was lost, right? Because everybody around me was in prison too.
That's right. Right? That's right. Ain't that how it work? That's how a cult works. You create
religion versus freedom. It is cultish. It's very cultish. I mean, it's very cultish.
You look at the definition, and then you find, and then you know how you compare, take off what you're doing in that definition that almost and a lot of people will kind of start realizing, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Yeah.
They tell you how to think, how to breathe. You can't wear this clothes, with this outfit. You can't drink that. You can't look at that. Oh, today you can't eat that. What?
Yeah. You can't wear your hair a certain kind of way. You need to try to, you need, as a Black woman, you need to make your hair look like this person's hair.
Yes. For years and years and years.
Years of that. It's crazy. And then guess what we did? We tried
we
for
did
a very long time.
And almost felt that we were going to miss out on so many things, because if we did not assimilate, we would not get what we thought we wanted.
And we know that, and now you realize we don't even want that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I remember we bring up something that, and I remember as a parent trying to be included, trying to your point, trying to be included, trying to not be thrown out. I had to do my daughter's hair in a certain way so that she could be accepted in the school she was going to at the time.
That's right.
Because I wanted her in this school. And I remember the pain and the anguish so many parents went through. Black mothers trying to make their daughter's hair look like tell some stories.
And what's crazy? It takes, like she said, it's years of it. It takes so long to get that brainwashing out of your head. I'm one of them. I'm a wig wearer. Everybody knows I wear wigs. When it came time to interview, I can remember clearly having a big curly hair one day, or maybe it was even a braided wig. But in my mind, I felt like, okay, you got to get home because tomorrow you got to put on that straight wig. You got to go in there and you got to have this interview. And you don't need to have all that big hair. You need to have it straight and pressed and a little bob or whatever, a little doobie, whatever you want to call it. Because this hair is not what they want.
But did you figure that out, or somebody told me? Somebody told me.
And nobody ever said that hair is not good. But when you look at how they treat the people that had that other hair, how they treated, and I'm an ear hustler, good ear hustler. I listen to the conversations after other women, ethnic women, come in with that hair that's beautiful, and they could care less whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And then I hear the conversations after they leave. So I figure, maybe you might not want to be on that end of that stick. Because I was already growing up where I grew up. I was already in this state of assimilation that meant don't stand out too much. Your skin does enough of it on its own.
You already got one.
So tell me, listen to your story, which I guarantee is probably most Black people's story.
Absolutely.
How do a people who got that going on in their own mind,
exactly,
how can we ever become great?
Yeah. Ooh. So we have to. I'm sorry, LaShawn, I have to cut you off because we have to end the show. Unfortunately.
Oh no.
However, I wanted to just highlight this, and I think you were going somewhat in this direction, right? But Brandy says the hardest part is getting someone to think, let alone change the thinking, right? So listen, I mean, Madam Attorney, you're gonna have to come back on for part 2 because this is opened up so much more than just the topic, right? So we definitely have to have you back on. We love everybody out there. We thank you for joining us. Make sure that you tune in again next week, Tuesday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here for Fem Talk. Take care, everybody.